Today I'm looking at this Black and Decker Workmate 300 workbench that somebody dumped on the side of the road right by my house here. I was going to take it over to the dump and throw it in the metal bin, but I took a second look at it and decided I might be able to make this thing useful again without really spending any money on it. First thing I did is I took a look at the vise mechanism here, and it was a little bit seized up, but I put some grease, some PB Blaster first, and then greased up the tracks here, or greased up the lead screw, and it seems to be, functioning more or less as intended. Maybe not quite as smooth as when it was new, but certainly good enough for using outside or whatever. Now, before I end up cutting any wood for the top, what I decided to do was look at the legs on this thing, and you can see they're kind of flopping around in the breeze, all except this one. There's a little locking clip on here so that if you wanted to fold this up and store it, you just could, put this out of the way, and when you open it up, that plastic clip just kind of clicks and holds the leg in place. Well, like I said, these other ones are all broken and they flop around, so when you try and move it, they fold up, and it seems to be a little bit of a pain in the neck. So what I'm going to do is just lock these in place. I'm not going to worry about those clips. I'm going to try and put a screw right through this flat spot and into this part here. Just keep the legs secured in the open position all the time. Here's what it looks like with the screw in. Drilled the hole through the leg and the support block, and then just found 4 screws in the junk box and threaded them right into the sheet metal. So now the legs are sturdy, they won't fold up at all, which is fine. That's actually what I want. I'm going to end up probably leaving this thing outside most of the time and just carrying it around. So it's going to work just fine for what I need. Next thing I'm going to do is remove these bolts in each of these plastic blocks. There's one in each block, and they seem to be 13 millimeters. So I'm going to just use this old ratchet wrench and see if I can get these out of here and out of the way. What I ended up using was this old piece of pressure-treated deck board that I had up in the back. You can see it's kind of wet. It's been raining outside all day, and it's still wet from the rain since it was stored outside. But I've cut 2 of the pieces down to 30 inches in length, and now I'm just going to measure it up and try and get it centered, and then drill some holes so that I can bolt the plastic sliders back on to these boards. I've got the holes in the first board all drilled up here, and what I've got is in the back, or in this hole, is a 1/2 inch hole through the entire board. This hole is 3/8 inch all the way through, and then countersunk with a 3/4 inch bit. And the reason for that is to allow the bolt to sit underneath flush with the board, sort of like a store-bought one. But it also allows the bolt to protrude through the plastic block here. And you can also see what I've done is, instead of using the original bolts that came out of it, which were a little bit shorter, I've used these longer bolts that I had in my junk box that kind of stick through a little bit further. So I guess what I'll do now is go ahead and do this side, and you can see the way the plastic block is configured. This is just an alignment and anti-rotation peg that fits in the 1/2 inch hole, and then it sits on here, and then the bolt comes through the other hole through this and into this threaded hole in the workbench itself. Okay, one thing that I just noticed that I didn't realize when I first started, and it would have changed how I centered this on the board, is that these front 2 plastic blocks have a boss on the bottom side of the block as well that fits into this hole here in the workbench frame. The back blocks don't have that same alignment peg, so it means that the board now has to sit on the bench this way, which means the board overhangs here a little. Okay, with this board turned around like this, so that the holes line up and that boss lines up in the workbench frame, I've realized that I can't crank the crank, is use my remaining piece and just make a new board. I was reluctant to do that because I noticed that this board, this piece has a little bit of a irregularity in the edge, but I don't think that's going to matter too awful much. So I'll just make a new set of holes in this board. Okay, so I've got the holes drilled and the blocks mounted on the second board, and I thought I had these measured up so that they were centered, but they're still a little off. But it should be okay. I guess I didn't measure twice. Anyway, so now the next thing to do is to get this bolt to line up with this piece here in the on the lead screw. Okay, so I've got the other piece drilled and mounted here, and everything seems to be in order. The boards clamp right up like intended, so I could use this thing as a bench vise if needed. And of course the cranks all seem to be working good now. No interference on the board, and they seem to crank okay now that I've kind of greased them up. So I think this thing will be usable now. Well, I guess that's it for today. Hopefully this video was helpful. Thanks for watching.